Hey, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor, America's first licensed astrologer. And I'm so thrilled to be bringing you my November 2021 forecast for the United States of America. For those of you who study astrology, you know that the houses in a mundane chart are somewhat similar to a personal chart, but it's on a much larger scale. They're not exactly the same because they include so many millions of people, and in the case of a country, and mundane areas that we personally don't look at or deal with in our daily activities. So I'm going to give you, as I go through this, the mundane interpretations of the houses. I do this all the time without necessarily announcing it, but I want you to know that some of you were asking the difference between a personal chart and the chart of a country. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the United States chart in November. Well, let's start with the sun, the giver of life, the center of our universe. Wherever the sun is, that is the area that comes alive. It is wonderful in your own chart as the transiting sun. And for those of you who don't study astrology, that's the orbiting sun. We know that the sun doesn't orbit the earth, but the chart is based on the fact that we are egocentric. Okay, so first of all, the sun has been and will continue to be in our sixth house of work, health, and service. And if you have watched the stats on the news, the health picture in the United States seems to be improving. After all, we have been involved, as has the rest of the world, with a pandemic. So the sixth house is where the sun has been and where it is going to be until the 29th of the month when it moves into the seventh house. So the sixth house deals with the military and civil servants. It deals with health, surprise, with jobs. And so the job picture should have been improving with the opportunity to work, though not necessarily filling those positions. Civil servants of all types, pets, our food supply, animals of all types. And when I say civil servants, I mean police, fire, military, etc. Okay, on the 29th, the sun moves into the United States seventh house. Now, this is very interesting. We know, those of us who study astrology, that the seventh house deals with partnership, with alliances. And what I like from the sun in the seventh is that with the giver of life in our seventh house of relationships and contracts of all types, we can renew our alliances with our formal allies that were previously destroyed. So it deals with international affairs, with war. Yeah, seventh house is war. But in a personal chart, those of you who study astrology know that the seventh house is marriage, and then it's divorce. And that's because the seventh house deals with contracts and agreements of all sorts. So we narrow it down and say marriage, divorce, etc. Lawsuits. It is in a United States chart, in a mundane chart, our open enemies. These are the ones we know about. Okay, that's a little different from the 12th house. And I'm going to get to that in just a minute with the lunations. It deals with the law, with lawyers, with politics, Well, politics goes on all the time, but the emphasis with the sun there, to me, is I'm optimistic because we have been, I want to say, such children about where I say we, I mean our politicians, such children. Let's get together and let's help the country, for goodness sake. And with the sun in the seventh house, that becomes more of a possibility. Now, the sun rules the ego, and so that's always there. I know. Marriage and divorce, it rules the lower courts. Okay. It deals with the public. So it deals with everybody out there. And I'm very optimistic about the sun being in the seventh house. More on that next month. Okay, that's the sun. Now I want to talk about the new moon and the full moon because they're very important in our personal charts. They're equally important in our nation's chart. Okay, let's start with a new moon. Now, on the new moon, that's when energy starts growing. The new moon is the 4th. By the way, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm a Gemini. I'm just going to throw it out there. Mercury comes out of the shadow of the retrograde tomorrow. Today is November 1st. Yes, I managed to record this on the 1st of the month. And tomorrow, Mercury comes out of the shadow, which means new programs, new ventures can begin. You can start new projects. The new moon is on the 4th. Well, that means that today and tomorrow, the energy tends to be low because we're in the dark of the moon. All right. The new moon is in our 6th house. It's in 12, Scorpio, 40. Now, I just got finished telling you that the sun is in our 6th house and has been in our 6th house. And so everything I just said starts moving forward on the 4th. I love it. I just love it. Now, you notice I've got all kinds of lines running around here. This new moon is square our south node in the 9th house of international politics, foreign trade, foreign travel, the upper courts, higher education, religion, the clergy, science and advertising, insurance, yes, the Supreme Court, of course, and world trade. I think I mentioned that first. It also squares our north node in the 3rd house. The 3rd house in a mundane chart rules communication, news and newspapers, news reporters, our mail, our public opinion, traffic, travel, books and newspapers. In other words, all kind of communication, our neighborhoods, schools, teachers, education, and public transportation. Okay, so there is a square to the south node and a square to the north node from the new moon. So that's a T-cross. A T-cross is like a table with 3 legs. And so wherever the energy begins, which is in our 6th house, which I've just described all over the place, it moves into the empty arm, the missing leg of the table. That is the 12th house. Now, remember, the energy from this new moon is going to wind up and be focused in the 12th house. In a personal chart, the 12th house is the spirit plane. It is higher spiritual work, behind the scenes activities of all types. Excuse me, just 1 second. And in a mundane chart, it deals with hidden things. Here are a few: bribery, spies, our hidden enemies, prisons, jails, criminals, charitable institutions, hospitals, secret societies, welfare, and people who might be in bondage. Those are the areas which are activated by this new moon. If you think about it for a minute, just think about all that it covers. These are our hidden enemies, and they may be in our own house, so to speak. And the 12th house deals with all kinds of behind the scenes activities, some of which are nefarious. I'm just saying. And we know that there has been hacking by foreign nations, hacking of the United States. I feel that because of all this private activity here, there are things that we are not being told that for our own good, our own safety and security, are going to remain private. I've given you the list. Choose the area that feels right to you. Now, 2 weeks after the new moon, we always have a full moon. Look at where the full moon is. In the 12th house. Can you stand it? But this full moon, when things come to a head and are revealed, oh my God, I can hardly wait. This eclipse, this lunation is not just, I just gave it away. This full moon, this lunation is not just a full moon. It is a lunar eclipse. And an eclipse lasts a whole lot longer than your average full moon. A full moon lasts for 2 weeks, and then we have another new moon. An eclipse lasts until the next pair of eclipses come along. And that would be April and May of 2022. So this full moon, this lunar eclipse, is a really big deal because all of those behind the scenes activities can be brought to light. Doesn't mean they're going to, means they could be. Just watch the news, okay? I'm just saying, watch the news. Now, this full moon, which is so beautiful, is a grand trine. A trine is a benefic aspect. All the planets in a grand trine. The eclipse is trine Pluto, is trine Neptune, and Pluto and Neptune play well together with other children, so to speak. When you have a grand trine, you have divine protection. Now, Pluto has been very important. On my YouTube channel, I did a video on the Pluto return. Pluto has an orbit of, oh gosh, I always get these last 2 digits confused, but at 249 years, it is sitting right there and has been right on its natal place for a while. It will complete its exact position right on Pluto for its very, very, very last go round, 2024. Now, the 9th house where Pluto lives, I described earlier, it's the upper courts. and higher mind and the Supreme Court and all that good stuff. So there will be behind the scenes activities that may get to the Supreme Court. I don't know. But Pluto is out with the old, in with the new. There can be changes made in terms of office, higher education, foreign travel, foreign negotiations. But wherever Pluto is in your chart or in a country's chart, that is where the control is, because Pluto is the planet of control. And when it is kicked into action, it is out with the old, in with the new. And so many of our beliefs, our principles, are going to undergo a transformation. Now, Pluto can also be involved in COVID. So can Neptune. And so these two are trine each other. And while they are being trined by the full moon, by the lunar eclipse, things start moving forward. Okay, so our policies change. Let's look at Neptune, and let's look at the fifth house. Neptune is our dream come true. Neptune is wishful thinking. Neptune is escape as well. Neptune is drugs of all types, whether recreational, because it's in the fifth house of fun and games, or medicinal. Just saying, just saying. And the fifth house deals with children, with sports, with fun, like movie theaters and gambling. It deals with a birth rate. It deals with congressional and public hearings. Oh, yeah. With stadiums, because that deals with sports. And Neptune, as I said, is drugs of all types. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that's going to have a positive effect on our Pluto in the ninth and our Neptune in the fifth. Neptune can be escape or the dream come true. So again, watch the news. There's a lot that is not going to be told to us, but the effects will be seen. And they're positive. I like that. Excuse me. Okay, now let's talk about Mercury and Venus. Mercury, of course, the blue planet, has been in our sixth house. I've described that to you. Wherever Mercury is, that's what we think about and talk about. Jobs, health, service of all types. On the 7th of the month, Mercury sits on the vertex in the United States. Now, the vertex in your birth chart is your karmic role in life with other people. So it is in a country. The vertex is always on the right-hand side of the chart because it's your role with others. It is the anti-vertex, which is in the on the left-hand side of the chart, which deals with the way out of that control. Very, very interesting. So when Mercury sits on the vertex, it puts attention on our role, which is one of service. And this can involve services provided for people and the people who provide those services. There can be a change made there in their status, in what is required of them. Now, Mercury doesn't necessarily, it's not an action planet. It doesn't kick things into activity, but it is what we talk about and what we think about. And so that can be very helpful. On the 29th, and if you recall, the sun enters the 7th house on the 29th. Well, so does Mercury. And so the sun and Mercury will be a team activating our relationships, our litigations, good grief, our international affairs, the law, lawyers, politics, the lower courts, war, all kind of lawsuits, and the public in general. And so there is a lot of activity to and from the public while we have this behind the scenes activities, making the clock work, making it go. Okay. And we're going to see the effects. We're not going to see the cause necessarily. We'll get an idea of what the cause is, but we will see the effects. Now, Venus, the planet of love and beauty, has been in our 7th house. Again, with all that interaction, you might say, well, I haven't seen much loving coming from the courts or from lawsuits or everything I've described. It doesn't mean that it's going to kick everything into action, but there is a blessing involved. With every issue, with every problem, there is a gift. In other words, how much worse could it have been? That type of thing. However, on the 6th, Venus moves into the 8th house of the United States chart. Now, the 8th house is very interesting. In a personal chart, it deals with secrets, sex, death, and goods of the dead is the old mantra about a definition of the 8th house. It's other people's money. It's transformation. It's secrets. Well, so is the 12th house, secrets. So we've got 2 houses that deal with secrets, and Venus brings blessings. So let me read you the definition of the 8th house. It rules the treasurer. It rules our debts as a country, as a nation, escrow, taxes, losses. It does rule death. And it rules all secrets. So again, we are being blessed. We may not recognize it as a blessing, but we are being blessed. And I feel like there can be some blessing when it comes to our taxes. I wouldn't bet the ranch on it, but with Venus there, bringing a loving tone, a loving light. The people who make the laws can begin to play nicely together. That would be good. All right. Now, there's one final chart I want to, yes, here we go. All right. Mars and Jupiter. Now, Mars is the planet of war. It's the planet of action. Wherever it is in your chart or the United States chart, this is what we throw ourselves into. This is what we're willing to fight with and fight for. This is what comes first to us. So, all that lovely communication and all the solar energy, which is, it lights it up. There's Mars saying, give me what I want, or I'm going to fight you for it. And remember that Mars is the warrior. Remember also that the 6th house deals with the workers, the working class, civil servants, police and fire, our health, our jobs, and yeah, the military. So here's Mars on our vertex saying, this is on the 4th of November. So there can be protests, arguments, fighting that people are passionate about, because the vertex is our role in life and it deals with our health and our well-being. Okay, and Mars is going to sit in that sixth house all month. It doesn't sit on the vertex all month, but it's there. It is what it is. Now, Jupiter. Last month, in October, I told you that with Jupiter on our midheaven and our moon, the 10th house, which rules the party in power, it rules the president. With Jupiter there, the great benefic, which blesses us, which expands whatever it touches, which brings benefits, optimism, joy. It improves whatever it touches. It improves whatever house it is in. I had said that the United States reputation will improve. And just a couple of days ago, President Biden mended fences with French President Macron. And they shook hands and said, whoops, sorry. And they made up. I do believe that our public image has been improving, and that trip, and let's not forget that he had an audience with the Pope, introduced a certain amount of his humor. They had a great conversation, according to the news. And so our public image is improving, and this thrills me. We really are not an island alone, and to have our allies, our friends on our team is wonderful. So I'm very optimistic about our image now. And so that's November, guys. That's it right there. I hope that this has been informative to you. Play it again. Listen closely, okay? I think you'll find it very interesting. So, till we meet again, this is Maxine Taylor saying, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours, and may God bless America. Bye for now, my dear friends.